Welcome to our merry and bright December meeting of the Johnson County Board of Directors for our library system. Do we have any citizens' comments, either in the audience or that have been received electronically?
I have not received any electronic comments.
Okay, fantastic. Is there anybody in our audience or waiting on deck? I'm going to take that as a no. So we are going to go ahead and move on. Do we have any comments from our board of directors? We do have apologies from Brandy Butcher, who is unable to attend today. There is a family situation in which she is required to care for a family member and cannot be here with us. And we are still a member down, so hopefully in the new year we will have a full 7 to get on with things. If anybody needs to slip in, we can kind of backtrack and see if there are any other comments by members. I have no comments other than happy holidays. Enjoy the warm weather before the inevitable polar vortex of January and February come for us. So enjoy living in a place where the air does not, in fact, hurt your face right now. So that is all from me, wishing everyone happy holidays, happy new year, and all of that until we see you again. And that is all. So I guess next on deck would be Friends of the Library.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Casserly and the august assembled for welcoming these remarks today. 3 remarks to tell you about our new board officers, realignment of some staff duties, and a very exciting members pop-up sale. We did elect new members of the board of directors for the Friends of Johnson County Library, and we're working on getting that executive team together with the foundation executive team and some members of our own JCL board just to get to know you and let everyone know that we're all on the same page and pulling the same oar and reading the same book and dancing to the same tune, which is support of Johnson County Library. Our new president is Chris Meyer, the head of marketing for Block Real Estate Company here in town, and he's been with the board a few years. Other board members include Shauna Eichenborg, Vicki Dank, and Diane Carlisle, all currently serving on the board. Really excellent team of hard workers who are eager to put their shoulder to the library wheel. We have realigned some staff duties. We have a new business manager. We thought we had a new business manager. The shoe didn't fit. So we shook it off and went to look at another pair that are more comfortable. And Chris Hickam has joined the team and will be taking over internet sales and membership fulfillment. And we're looking at all kinds of great automations and improvements for fulfilling on membership. So look for that news in the future. Shanta Dickerson, Karen Dembinski, and Becky Apperson, current staff members, remain on board. Shanta has changed her title to Director of Operations because she's assuming more directorial functions, including overseeing management of finance, and is educating herself to fulfill those duties. We're really lucky to have her as a partner in the Friends. Members-only pop-up sales at the Pine Ridge headquarters have started. Owing to other delays in getting into a different space, the Friends are making lemonade of the lemon. That is the 5,000 square foot book sorting facility. It's not really a lemon, but it is a tasty citrus fruit, and it is being tried out as a sort-to-sell facility. They've installed some bookshelves and have advertised to members. The first sale for 5 hours made $500, which is modest and welcome. When you consider that the average revenue for one of the bookstores currently is between $1,250 and $1,500 a month, to make 30% of that in one afternoon is welcome news that our members and customers will come to headquarters to shop for books. If we make it more of an event and a destination, perhaps thematically oriented, as this sale was, we feel like we're paving a road to success for ourselves there. And we'll be communicating more broadly about that in some upcoming Friends news. There is another edition of the pop-up sale this coming Saturday, December 11, from noon until 5. Gently used children's literature and AV can be had for a song. We'd prefer cash, but if you sing, we'll probably let you go with it. Any questions?
Question, couple. So how does that compare to because you're targeting Lackman? We're not sure where that's going to happen. How does the pop-up sales at the headquarters comparing, the pros and cons, size-wise, and
We are limited by the amount of space, which controls the amount of inventory we're able to make visible to customers at a given time. And parking and other amenities at the site are necessarily more constrained because it's a multi-purpose business park as opposed to a single facility dedicated to a single purpose. The preference would be for a single sort-to-sell multi-purpose site. The Friends are welcoming this opportunity to trial that operation. They're already very pleased with being able to convert to sales without the headache and expense of transport of inventory. And volunteers who are going to be working the sale already know where they are when they get to Pine Ridge. So it's a plus, but a smaller plus.
so how big is the headquarters now? 5,000 square feet, you said?
5,000 square feet
How
total.
big is Lackman? Do you remember?
18 to 20.
Yeah, I think they were looking to occupy 14,000 of that.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean. That's why he's the leader and I work for him. Thank you all.
Thank you. Miss Stephanie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephanie Stolzheimer, and I am delighted to report on behalf of the Foundation. The annual appeal is in full swing as we promote year-end giving. The theme is 25 years of making a difference. And we're really getting some nice response. It's fun to check the mailbox and find a little stack of return cards for people who want to just make that year-end gift. It's very gratifying and an honor really for the library to have so many people who want to give at the end of the year. The initial mailing went out the 1st of November, and we've been following up with digital and social media. And we'll do one more follow-up mid-month to some of our key donors and remind them that we're here for their year-end gift. So that's a big push. It's our second biggest fundraiser that we do during the year. The Foundation's 2022 slate of officers were approved. Just like the Friends, this is that year-end activity. Our officers include Ava Christie, who is the president. We're thrilled. Ava has been involved with the Foundation for about 12 years. She has a commercial real estate company called Weststar, and she's just really one of our more dynamic fundraisers, and to have her as president is exciting. Dr. Leanne Neal is our president-elect. Chris Anderson is our past president. Ken Eaton is our treasurer, and Sean Casserly continues as our secretary. We have 3 new board members, Stan Tate, Benjamin Struby, and Anjali Pandya. We're excited to welcome new members to our board. As we kick off 2022, we have a virtual appreciation event scheduled for January 16th with Johnson County Library's own Greg Windsor, Reader's Advisory, who will share with us his must-reads for 2022. The event will be on Zoom and provide a fun and interesting hour for our most loyal and generous supporters who are volunteers, friends, and donors. And finally, we're still encouraging folks to come to these, we call them VIP tours. It's just there's tours of people who are really stakeholders to the highest level, really. We have 2 more VIP tours. You can join. You are obviously high stakes. Join a tour tomorrow, Friday, December 10th. It'll be fun. We got a good group coming out. We have about 10 to 15 it's a nice size group, and it's fun to get together. I think Bethany's coming. Yeah, good. Looking forward to that. So tomorrow, and then again Friday, January 28th, and then after that, it's just that fast track to opening. So it's very exciting. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hanslick, what have you been reading?
I apologize for not being here at the last meeting. There was a mix-up on the calendar, and I thought we were still on the other date. So I'm glad to be here today. A couple of commission updates. First of all, I wanted to mention I had the opportunity earlier this week to visit and tour the adult residential center. I keep wanting to say rehabilitation. The adult residential center. It's a program for justice-involved individuals who are transitioning out of incarceration. And much to my surprise and delight, there is a Johnson County Library in the adult residential center. And the staff there, that was a highlight of our tour, and that they really, really appreciate that access to books. And they told us it's not just books. They said the staff, library staff who come there have worked with people on finding jobs, on life skills. So I just wanted to share that with you. I don't know that all of you know that there is a library, albeit a small library, but it is in the adult residential center. So that was exciting. I also want to share some exciting news. Gosh, it's been about a month and a half now, but the Board of County Commissioners approved a 5-year pilot transit project to utilize the ARPA federal fundings for transit. And there are some major changes that we are going to be trying with the use of that money. It's about $15.2 million that I think has a lot of implications for the libraries. The routes, many of the routes are going to be, the days and the times that they're available are going to be extended. Most exciting is the frequency is going to be increased on many of the routes. You know, if you have to wait an hour for a bus, you're less likely to use it or to find it to be helpful. And if it comes more frequently, it's going to be a lot more attractive for people to use. The microtransit service area is expanding. The microtransit the fees will increase. It's in a zoned area because the microtransit has itself been a pilot project, and the trips have only been $1.50. And those don't begin to touch the actual cost, and so those fees will be increasing. But the most exciting part to me is that the new plan includes a new fixed route bus line on 87th Street that'll go between Lenexa City Center, all along 87th Street, past Central Resource Library, downtown Overland Park, and up to the Mission Transit Center. So I am thrilled that we'll be catching at least 2 of our libraries on that route that had not previously had that. So very excited about that. There will be public input hearings in the next few months. That's a federal requirement. So look for some information about that, and hopefully we can get that out through the library too, for people that are interested in using transit to get to our libraries. This morning, on a not quite as interesting a note, but important, this morning at the Board of County Commissioners approved the transfer of close to $4 million to help pay for the Antioch Library replacement. So that's good news too. And finally, I know you always want to know what I'm reading. You know, with the world the way it is, I decided I needed to look for a book that would feed my soul. And so the book I'm reading is called Love is the Way, Holding On to Hope in Troubling Times. It's by the first Black presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. You may remember him, Michael Curry. He was the gentleman who preached at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding over in England. And it's just a very inspiring book. He talks about that the opposite of love is not hate, it's selfishness, and how building community and being in community is key to getting us through these times. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm almost got a few more pages, but that's what I'm reading. So thank you. And just another note, Joe, Connor, and I will have to scoot out. We have a Zoom meeting at 5, and we're going to take it down the hall here. So no offense, but too many meetings.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Logan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Andrew Logan, Board Counsel. Sean's asked that we address intellectual freedom and challenges to the collection. I think this is coming kind of in the context of there being challenges to library materials and books, typically within public schools. So we'll talk about intellectual freedom here at the library, how the board has addressed that in policy, and kind of the statutory authority very generally. So, intellectual freedom basically means books and materials of all kinds being available to all people in the community. And the library board has really set out in its Library Bill of Rights and the Administrative Regulations Manual that kind of encapsulates its idea of intellectual freedom. So I'm going to read two parts from that. Books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and ideas and enlightenment of all people of the community the library serves. And libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. So that's the board's policy with respect to intellectual freedom, and that's kind of reflected in collections management. And so the way the library handles collections management and development is based in statute, and where the statute provides for the library to follow county policies with respect to purchasing, acquisition of library materials, particularly books, movies, music, you name it, is carved out in KSA 12-1225 Part C, which provides that the duties of the library board, of this board, shall be to acquire, purchase, gift, or exchange books, magazines, papers, on and on. And this is really the exclusive responsibility of this board to acquire materials. So the board has fulfilled its duties to, meet its statutory requirements and responsibilities by having a collections development policy. And this is something that has been adopted and adapted over the years to ensure that there's the proper development, management of the collection here. And we see that very often where we have presentations about how we analyze what we have in the collection, what gets weeded out, what stays, and that's very clearly laid out in the policy. The policy itself from this board really empowers the staff to make decisions and to analyze what's being purchased, what is getting weeded out, how many there should be, those kinds of things. And there are guidelines for that in there. There are certain criteria with respect to format of materials that are being acquired, as to who the clientele are, what kinds of patrons certain materials are for, whether it's for children and youth all the way up to, adult. So it really lays out what the guidelines are for the development and acquisition. On the flip side, it also provides a policy and procedure for reconsideration of material, and that's the request for reconsideration is what it's called. And a patron, if they had an issue, could submit that request, and it then is, there's a process that's laid out where the collection development manager would be able to take that and consider that person's request. There's also then a review process that involves other library staff and then potentially all the way up to this board to review that decision to make sure it's being followed, that policy has been properly followed. So I think I would just say, from our standpoint, the policy has been effective. It has worked over the years. The library collection is very much praised in the sense that, satisfaction surveys, the Johnson County Library are always very high, and I think it reflects the good work that the staff has done and the thoughtful nature of the way this board has gone about developing that policy. So I think that's really it from my standpoint. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Couple. So we as a board really have we don't have the authority to even remove a book or add a specific book because it's been empowered to the staff. Is that correct?
I think that's a fair statement, yes.
Okay. And then I think from all points of views are established. I think that's kind of what we went over last month, just kind of going through that you look to make sure we're not skewing one way or the other or ignoring something. Is that?
Yes.
That's pretty much what you go through to make sure that we are following that, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The tools have gotten better, but as long as inventory controls, sampling, looking at circulation records, those types of things, and purchasing records, that was what we've done in the past. But now we're able to automate some of that through the iCurate product, and we're making some adjustments. I don't know what interval we're going to run that, but we may run it every 2 years, similar to how we're doing the collection policy review, to make sure that we're not seeing any unconscious bias enter into the collection.
Okay, I have a random question. Has there ever been a successful challenge, like to get a book removed?
At this library, no. There has been challenges, and the library did remove the Library Bill of Rights at one board meeting, but they reinstated them the next board meeting, and it was around a topic where a board member had objection to a specific title. It could have been resolved by maybe taking that title and replacing it with a similar type book covering that topic, but ultimately the book was not removed.
Interesting. Okay.
Back to your question, David, we have the ability, and this goes along with suspending the Bill of the Rights, we have the ability to change the policy. We would have to do that as opposed to directing a particular action.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. I guess it's time for the librarian's report.
Thank you. I'd like to invite David to come up and meet you. You're absolutely right. If you change the policy, you could give the board that authority.
No, thank you. I'm good.
Good afternoon, Library Board. Just going to go quickly over the library revenue report. We're looking at the period of time as of the end of October of this year. As of the end of October, we will have been about a little over 83% of the way through our year. In total, our revenues are a little over $40.6 million, which represents a little right around 97% of what we anticipate to collect. So we're closing gap in on what we're projected to take in. We may come a little short as our library generated revenues and copying, printing, Fines and fees are still lagging, but that's, I think, to be expected. The good news is on that, our expenses overall are in good shape. As of the end of October, and this includes our collections encumbrances, we're about $32.7 million, or about 78%. So 83% of the way through the year, and only 78% having been spent or encumbered. So I'm guessing there will be some savings at the end, which will offset whatever little bit of revenue we don't collect. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have. Okay, great. Thank you.
Invite Adam to come up and give the monthly statistical report.
Hello, I'm Adam Wathan. I'm the Associate Director for System-Wide Services at the library, and I'll be giving this month's statistical report. These numbers are from October. And you'll see that the physical circulation trend and the digital usage trend have maintained, that the physical circulation trend is still lower than both 2019 and 2020. And the digital usage trend is right between 2019 and 2020, that 2020 being an anomaly as many of our buildings were closed for some of that time, and it drove a lot of use toward digital content. And then on the next slide, you'll see our visitation trend, which also continues as expected, which is higher than 2020, but still not pacing with the 2019 levels. Any questions about this report? Then I'd like to invite Laura Blair up. Laura Blair is our, I want to say, Learning and Development Training Manager. And Laura Blair is giving trends in learning and development. One of the things that we have done in previous years that you'll see is that we had a sort of statistical sheet with learning and development, but with Laura Blair as a new manager, we're giving her some space to create those baseline statistics for the team and to start new. She's going to give some snapshots of what's happening in learning and development in lieu of the kind of report that I usually give in that month. Thank you, Laura.
Hello, thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you today. So one of the biggest things that happened in 2021 for the learning and development team, excuse me, the warm weather is negatively affecting my sinuses. So please forgive me. We increased the capacity of the learning and development team. We added an additional learning specialist, and then the library hired me to help drive the strategic plans of the learning and development team. So since forming the team, we have developed strategic partnerships with departments across the library. We've increased our capacity. We are partnering with the House Street Group on succession planning and leadership development. And then we are heavily involved in the training for the reopening of Central. Next, please. So L&D by the numbers. This year we offered 126 internal programs that were created by and facilitated by JCL staff. 842 people attended those sessions. External conferences and other external events, we did those virtually this year. We had 101 staff attend those. New employee orientation. Excuse me. We hosted 48 new or newly promoted staff. Next, please. One area of focus that we have been partnering with County IT and JCL IT on is cybersecurity awareness. As you all may know, that is something that is all over the news. There's tons of threat out there. So through a program called InfoSec IQ, we have developed training and other things to help our staff become more aware and safer. So InfoSec IQ, we have 324 learners. We have a 98.49% training completion. And we have a training that goes out once a month, and 98% of library staff have completed that, which is fantastic. You'll notice that 54.84% is what industry average of training completion is. 83%, the other piece of the training is a phishing scam test. So we send out fake phishing emails to see if people will take the bait or not. 83% of our staff have reported that that's a phishing scam and have not clicked on it to move through. So I think we're doing really well there. Next, please. So future plans, this is where I am really excited about what's next for learning and development at JCL. As I mentioned earlier, we're working with leadership succession development, new manager and new employee operations training. So how do you run a library? Getting down to the basics and ensuring all of our staff have everything that they need to know. We're going to leverage e-learning solutions and create some blended learning solutions. So it's not going to all be in class. So there's lots of ways that we can deliver training just in time when people really need it. We're going to focus on technology training as well, utilizing Teams, SharePoint, all of those other technologies that we have that can make our lives easier. The training evaluation process. Is our training effective? And we're going to put measures in place to ensure that it is as effective as it can be. We're also going to continue some of our fabulous programs that we currently have in personal development, organizational awareness, and job tasks. Do you have any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And just as a point of interest, as far as our completion rate, we're significantly higher than Parks and Rec. All right. Scott, I would invite you to come up and talk a little about where we're at with the capital plan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Syme, Project Coordinator for the library. I've got several things to talk about today, and first I'll start with Central. So on behalf of the core team and team leads, let's get into it. I want to give a little bit of statistics on the Little Central, talk about what we're doing with the move-in, next steps, timeline, and then some photos about progress. Next slide, please. So here are our usage numbers for October. You'll see we had that dip in August when we were closed. We've recovered from that on both user visits on the left and PC usage on the right. Next slide. Move-in updates. So Titan is our construction manager. They're finishing up the punch list, which is kind of the last things they need to do before they're all finished. Collections has finished shifting the adult and graphic fiction sections, getting those prepped for the library, or prepped for reopening. And they'll be moving on to the kids section where we're getting new shelving later this month. New kids shelving setup is in progress. IT continues to plug away at setting up and updating technology in our public areas. Furnishings are coming in. New kids self-checks have been installed, and we're, I think as Laura mentioned, we're starting to plan and prepare for staff training moving back into the new spaces. Okay, next steps. So hopefully what I just said matches what we've been doing in December. And then you'll get a sneak peek at what we're planning for July, February, and after. Okay, next slide, please. Here's our timeline. So we are right in that owner move-in process. Still on track to open on the 22nd of February. Next slide. We've got a few new pictures for you today. This first one here is our new exterior building and monument signage. So excited about the new look there, and that those have gotten an update. Next slide. This is our kid space, so you can see that the finishes are all in. We're starting to get the PC tables in there in the middle. The self-check you can kind of see here in the foreground is in its spot where it'll make more sense as the furniture comes in. And then one more slide, I think. This is taking a look at the cubicles or systems furniture coming in. So you see the structures there and Some of the pictures you may notice those little white wires, that's the power and data. So those will be hooked up for power and data. Okay, one last thing on Central. You may be wondering when we're moving the board meetings back to Central, and our goal there is to get the public spaces ready first, get the main building back open, and we're planning to bring you more information on resuming those board meetings at Central when we come back and see you in January. Any questions on Central? Okay. Before I jump into Antioch, I'd like to invite Nate Hull up to talk a little bit, give a deeper dive into the moving process for the Central project.
All right, good afternoon. My name's Nate Hull, and I'm an assistant branch manager at the Monticello and DeSoto branches, and I'm the project manager of the CBU2 Moves project. My project team includes several people from many different areas of the library, and they are Josh Adkins, warehouse coordinator at Central, Chris Carlton, IT analyst, Rose Crane, acquisitions and processing team leader, Jamal Lang, adult services support clerk, Tina Peterson, accounting specialist, Jennifer Taylor, creative services coordinator, and Dev Tillotson, assistant branch manager at Central. So our task, quite simply, has been to move the approximately 140 staff who call Central their home out of the building, along with all of their belongings, while construction is taking place, and then move everyone and everything back once construction is complete. Next slide. So on the surface, this sounds fairly straightforward, but because there's so many different people involved with so many different needs, there are a lot of challenges we had to work through. Some of the biggest challenges we faced had to do with, first of all, figuring out where everyone would work during their year away from Central. Some staff are able to work remotely, some need to be at a library station every day, and some are able to work remotely but also need a library station from time to time. For those staff who needed library stations to do their work, alternate sites were set up and a landing spot was created for staff who needed to drop in. Likewise, the challenge of removing, storing, and disposing of all the things that people had at Central was very steep. What could staff get rid of? What would they need access to during construction? And what could they do without for a year but would then need once they returned? To address these concerns, we created systems for staff to pack, store, and dispose of all the items they had accumulated over the years at Central, and created two separate storage spaces, one for long-term storage and another for items staff would need to be able to access during construction. And then there was the mail, which was much more complicated than you might think. Not just figuring out where staff would pick up their mail, but also determining how package delivery would take place, as well as sorting and coordinating the processes between the library and county courier routes. Once again, we created a system that made it possible for staff to not only receive their mail at alternate locations, but also ensure that mail and packages made it to the right places on time. The challenges for moving back to Central have been a little bit different. Since the staff spaces at Central have virtually all been changed, it isn't a matter of putting things back where they were before. Likewise, it isn't simply a matter of picking a date and moving everyone and their items back into the building. If the new furniture isn't put together, technology isn't set up to allow people to do their work, and they haven't been trained on how to use their new spaces, staff won't be successful upon their return. Our team has been working with Central staff and developing systems to ensure everyone's items end up in the proper place so they can be easily located when staff return. There also has been a tremendous amount of coordination between the different CBU2 project teams to ensure all of the staff return at the time that will allow them to be the most successful. To make the move-in more manageable, we've created a 3-phase move-in process that will bring Central staff back to the building gradually, allowing time for each project team, furniture, IT, training, security, and collections to get the work done they need to get done, and prepare the building to be ready for staff in gradual steps. I've worked especially close with the training and etiquette team project manager, Chris Madrigal, who you'll hear from next month, as his team's focus on how Central staff will interact with their new spaces has greatly informed my team's work in terms of when staff can return to the building. The overall focus has been to get the building back up and open to the public as soon as possible, and therefore our branch staff who work directly with our patrons every day are among the first who will be back in the building in their new spaces in Phase 1. Phases 2 and 3 staff will move back further down the road after we open to the public. And in closing, I just want to thank all the members of my team who have brought so much wisdom, expertise, and institutional knowledge to our project. With something of this magnitude that encompasses the number of staff that we've had to work with, their perspectives and points of view have been really valuable in making the project successful. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Nate. That was a really great report. Scott, are you going to give us updates on the remaining projects?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'll jump into Antioch here. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about a design update, a little bit about public engagement, and then review the timeline. So as far as design goes, we've determined that really a one-story layout is going to best serve the functional needs of the library. We've given that direction to the architects, and I'm excited to jump back into the design process in the coming months with our library subject matter experts and the architects too. Public engagement, we have one more public engagement that we're planning, which is really a report out, I think I've talked about this before, of what we heard in the public sessions and how the design's responding to those things. And we look forward to sharing the updated design drawings when they're ready. A few next steps. So as I mentioned, we're excited to get back into design. We'll bring the plan is to bring this final site plan to the city of Merriam as we go. Of course, the library board will see it too. And then once we have that exterior plan approval, we would go ahead and do the property transfer with the city. Next slide. Here's a look at our timeline. No changes since last time. Any questions on Antioch? I'll go on to the next one then, which is the DeSoto, Spring Hill, and Edgerton Renewal Study. This is the first time I've given an update on this one here, and we'll jump into it here. Next slide. I want to talk about the study's scope, next steps, and timeline. Next, please. So really the scope is to reach out to the community and stakeholders to collect their input on what types of improvements they'd like to see at these locations. We also want to analyze the existing building conditions, bring back conceptual design options. That's really bringing them back to the library board. And then as we develop those conceptual design options, we're going to be developing budgets with those, really so the library board can choose kind of what they want to see at those buildings. Next slide.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
have you scheduled the collection of input?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Nope. We're looking at probably late January, early February for those. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, that's one of our next steps, planning and conducting community engagement. And then last slide. This is our timeline. So we're pretty early in the process. We're doing a lot of planning, and we'll be having our kickoff with the architect pretty soon. And then we'll do that community engagement phase. Then we'll get into the design, and then we'll bring options back to the library board. Any other questions on this one? Okay, I think I have one more. Thanks for your patience. Capital improvement projects timeline summary. Next slide. So this is our big library projects. No change here since the last time you saw it last month. And then next slide. This one is new this time. So last month I talked a little bit about the 4 locations that we're focusing on for the 2022 capital replacement plan. Those are Gardner, Cedar Row, Oak Park, and Shawnee. So we've been working with the facilities team to figure out scope for those things and also start to look at timeline. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what you see on this slide. There is a little bit of work that we're hoping to tackle either yet this year or in early 22. So one of the things on your, a couple of things will appear later in your action agenda. So there is some work we'd like to do over at DeSoto on the HVAC system. So we'll be asking for a closure for that. Same thing with Leawood. There is some wall patching and painting work that we'd like to get done over there at Leawood. Corinth is a lingering item from this year, as you guys I'm sure all remember that. That's related to the arc flash work, so we're showing that on the schedule too. Then you see the 4 Gardner, Cedar Row, Oak Park, and Shawnee, and a little bit of a description over on the right with what the work is that we're planning to do over there. And Gardner looks funny. It looks different than the other ones here. So I want to talk a little bit about how those things are staged. Right, what we really talked with our admin team about is we don't want all our libraries to be closed at the same time. So we're looking at staggering this work time-wise and also by quadrant of library, kind of slice the county into 4 and by quadrant to not have stuff occurring in the same quadrant at the same time. So Gardner's first on the list, and it looks different because if we have supply chain issues for Gardner, we don't necessarily want to slide the whole timeline to the right. The plan is to take Gardner and move it to the end. Gardner is our biggest branch in that quadrant, and we want to make sure that they're able to be open for summer reading. That's a big draw out there. So this timeline would, if we don't have any of those supply chains issues, then Gardner would stay where it is, and if we do, then Gardner would flip to the end. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Any questions? Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Scott. Then finally, I'd said before that I was planning to bring a secession plan report, and I'm planning on bringing that in January. And then finally, the painting at Leawood. Scott talked a little about that. There are kind of 2 issues. Facilities has looked at that, and it's overdue for a touch-up. And then there's a secondary issue, which we've had some patron comments because we have on the walls names of authors, and they said that those names didn't reflect the diversity of authors. And so we're forming a team to look at that and analyze it. We're not making any changes on the touch-up, but we will come back with a proposal to the library board to diversify those names in the future. And the reason for closing is just so we don't have any fume issues. I will just remind the board, because you do not have a quorum, you're unable to take any action.
Well, this is something that in 5 years I have never seen before, so guess our meeting's going to be a wee bit shorter than planned, but we have procedures for that, and sometimes life just happens. So I don't know, Sean, if there is anything the admin team wants to look through and see if something is of such immediate response, we need to call a special meeting according to those procedures and try to get that in before Christmas, or if everything can wait until New Year. In terms of priorities, I know this is the MOU season, but I don't know what is critical for operations right now, or if some things can wait.
What I would ask is just to allow the admin team and I to come back and take a look and spend some time, review it, and see if there is a need for a special meeting on maybe 1 or 2 items, or if we can just move everything to January.
Okay, I think that's probably the most sensible thing to do, is if it is of immediate need.
I do have a question about a couple of the MOUs. Can I ask them?
Yeah.
Since you're going to take them back, it may be great timing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the one with the DeSoto parents as teachers, and I will preface this by saying I'm reading Premonition right now, so it's about the group of scientists that discovered pandemic issues. So just a quick question, do we want to call it staffing as COVID practices allow, or should we make that maybe something more general of public health emergency practices allow? Just throwing it out there for discussion.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer to it. I'm happy to change the language on it and maybe come back with some options.
I just wonder if it's better to do something along those lines than specifically tying it to COVID. I mean, I guess we can always change it as needed, but if these are year-long, I mean, you never know.
Yeah, we don't know what's happening with the new variant. And we also kind of don't know how cities react to it. Some cities have done mask mandates and some cities haven't, or what the state, there hasn't been, we're agreed there hasn't been consistency.
That's just why I'm wondering if it's better to make it a more general public health as opposed to calling out COVID. And that would apply to a couple of the MOUs.
Absolutely. We can come back with some language there's options. I think what the staff was trying to do is just being,
Oh, yeah.
just call it what it was.
no.
Yeah, but I think we can come back with maybe a couple of language options and then slot those in.
Okay,
Yep.
and then I did have another question on the MOU for the Johnson County facilities. It looks like, hold on, let me get to it. It looks like there was a repeat, and I didn't know if I was understanding it, but it's related to the budget. It looks like it's in section 1, and then it's the same language is also repeated in section 3. And I'm just wondering if it just needs to be stated one time.
We can review that too.
Yeah, that's just more like a being technical. But, yeah, there was just, I can't find it now, but in section 1, there were issues on, terms on the budget, and then it's also repeated in number 1 in section 3.
Yep, and that was probably of all the MOUs, that was the most detailed. And
Yeah.
what might have happened is a repeat, but what I'll do is work with the admin team and we'll look through that specific one and make sure that we don't have any duplications. It may have just been a simple cut and paste error.
Okay, thank you. Those were the only comments I had about the MOUs.
Okay. Well, we're kind of in limbo now because technically we can't adjourn.
We don't. You actually don't need a motion to adjourn, but technically,
Or is that just a formality?
it's just a formality, and it's not considered an action
Well.
item.
All righty then. So, thank you to everybody who spent all of this time doing all of these MOUs, and yay, you're ahead for next time. So, alrighty then. We will keep any patrons who are watching posted as to what our next moves are going to be, if we are going to have a special meeting or if this will wait according to our proper procedures and everything. And I guess everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully life doesn't hit us again. So, yay. Bye.
Happy holidays.